Hi everyone. It's mid-March, March 15th. At this time of year, we get our seed trays out on a table here, somewhere where there's some nice sun coming in typically, and we get our seeds planted for a lot of our gardens, both vegetable and flower gardens. So today we'll be doing some of that, and this basically just allows you to grow a lot more plants for your gardens at a cheaper rate than just waiting until May and buying them at the nurseries. Now we do that as well, but we also like to get a lot of our more abundant plants that we want growing indoors first, and then by mid to late May we can put them out as, you know, seedlings that are 5-6 inches or 15 centimeters or so tall. Today I'll also be planting some of our bulbs and corms and rhizome perennials that you have to bring in the fall as bulbs. So in that regard, I have a bunch of elephant ears here. See, I got about 10 of those. I've got some dahlias that I need to plant up. These have the big tubers, banana-like tubers almost on the bottom. It's good to start these indoors instead of just putting them out, because they almost need an extra growing period to have them blooming in the middle of the summer as opposed to the very end of the summer. Then I've got some Cannas bulbs as well as some Calla lilies that we have dug up too from last year. These elephant ear bulbs were ones I had in the garden last year and I just dug up, and so they still have the old root fibers on them. What you want to do prior to pre-planting them now is to cut these old root fibers off. They don't really have any function anymore for the plant, so anyhow you'll just be left with the pure heavy bulb of the elephant ear. And all this other stuff can get tossed aside for now. See, some of these are sprouting now or getting ready to sprout, so they should come out quite readily. Other ones will take a bit longer. Again, these are fairly slow growing, so that's why it's a good thing to get them started indoors first for a couple months, and then when you put them out they'll already be you know, half a foot or a foot tall and with leaves on them. Then it's just a matter of acclimating them to the sun when you put them out so they don't burn. Now these guys like a semi-shaded location anyhow. So there's all that. That might be a little one I can save there. Possibly. Another one here, I guess. Anyhow, very quick process, cleaning up the elephant ears. Here I've already potted up most of the dahlia tubers. Basically, when you look at those, you just take out any dead tubers. Some of them have wizzled up over the winter, so you remove those. Anything that may rot, you leave the good ones, and then as you can see here in this first pot, there's a few sprouts even coming up. So I tend to leave those above the ground to get the light and start the growing process. So as I mentioned before, we also have Cannas bulbs or rhizomes to plant. This is sort of a similar thing. You'd take these old dead rootlets off these bulbs. Probably could have done that in the fall. But I did wash these off and dried them prior to putting them in wood shavings for the winter. So there's a Canna bulb. Here's another one. Got probably 5 or 6 of those. And then a bunch of Calla lilies, which grow very readily. You can see these are all sprouting already. So these you can just put in a pot with some soil and start them off, and then put them out in the summer garden if you want to, and they can make a nice display in a semi-shaded area. So that's sort of the main stuff I'm doing today, in addition to getting to seed planting as well. So here's an example of some of the elephant ears after they've been planted up. I just put them in small pots 4 or 5 inches across with soilless potting mix, and then I've put them now in the sun so they'll get warmed up every day just by the sun's heat coming through the window, and that should start them on the germination process with weekly watering or so just to keep the soil moist. Don't want to overdo it. So here's how I ended up planting our Calla lilies. Since we had so many of them, I didn't want to use numerous pots. I just put them in this big pot tray. It's about 16, 17 inches across. And then I just put all the bulbs in here for the temporary time they're going to be here until May. And you can see how much they've already grown and turned green. If you can believe it, just since mid-March, here's our dahlias that I put in a few pots. And you can see how much growth they've put on. Now these will get long and stringy, so I'll have to eventually start pinching off the main growing part just to keep them from getting too long and leggy in the house until I put them out. Our Canna bulbs, again, because we had a few of them and they're shallow, I put them in this big aluminum pan. You can see one sticking up here. But they're slow growing, so they'll start coming up before long. Here's our elephant ears along the windowsill. And you can see for the most part, they haven't done too much yet. They're a little slow to get going, and this is again why you start them early. A little bit of green there showing. This little tray, I've started some annuals in here. I've got 8 giant zinnias, which are these ones here that have grown quite well. Then on this side I've got only 2 so far of my Mexican sunflowers. These guys here, Tithonia. If these other ones don't show up soon, I'll plant some other seeds because it's possible the seeds are not all viable still. We've got some leek seeds growing in here for transplant out eventually. Then in this tray I've planted 12 tropical milkweeds in this section of the tray. And in this section I've got large marigolds growing that'll get up to 36 inches tall. So you can see they're doing quite well. So there you have it, just a little background on some of the activities we've been doing to get ready for our gardens this spring. Indoor planting of annuals and perennials and bulbs to put out later. Shortly I'll have a video, I hope, to discuss some of my favorite plants that I use in our flower gardens. I'll go over the reasons why I like them and where they're best suited for, types of soils they prefer, amount of sun, that kind of thing. So look for that if you're into the gardening end of things on this channel. I'll hopefully have that out relatively soon. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you're as excited about getting back into the earth as we are here.